All righty. All right, everybody, I think we're finally here. All right, so tonight we have Asking for a Friend, and it's our first episode. And so y'all know, if you ever asked a question and you say that you're asking for a friend, but in reality, you're the friend who really needs to know. Well, that's kind of the premise of this whole series that we have started. So tonight is the very first night, episode 1, that we are starting with, and we are doing finances for this first week. And so, I realized that finances and just where our world is and everything that's going on right now is kind of crazy. And we have a lot of questions about our finances and what that looks like. And so I asked my brother-in-law, Nate VanBuskirk, to hop on here with me and kind of just us have a conversation. And so without further ado, I'd love to introduce y'all to Nate. And thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited.
So glad that you're joining us. Yeah, we're going to have fun talking about finance. We can have fun doing that, right?
You can, believe it or not, contrary to popular belief, yes.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to try. That's for sure. So, kind of how this is going to work. I have a few questions for him, that all of my friends want to know. And so I'm going to ask those to you. And then also we're going to have people, if you have a question, if you're viewing this tonight, then just drop it in the comments and we're going to get to those two later on. So we'd love to be able to answer your questions that you have. Maybe your friend has a question that they want to know. So be sure to drop those in the comments, and here in a little bit, we'll get to those as well. So Nate, I thought just though to kind of start us off, if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and your career in financial planning and just how kind of even that all started.
Sure. Yeah. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me on. I think that this is a really cool thing that you guys are doing, especially while we are all quarantined. It's cool to still feel like you're part of a community and you're all still trying to work towards common goals, even under the circumstances. So thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I also told my friend, Mr. Brad Batson, who has said that he would be watching live, that I would tell him hi during this tonight. So I wanted to make sure that I got that out of the way too.
We love Brad.
Yeah, I think everybody loves Brad.
Sure.
But kind of some of my background for how I got started in this is I have an insurance background. I started off when I was very, very young working for Nationwide's corporate offices. And as that progressed, I had an opportunity to come back and work for my wife's family that ran an insurance agency. Her dad was an investment advisor, did all sorts of things with money that I had never really been exposed to. And as soon as I came over to the agency, really, really liked the thought of working with people to help them achieve their goals in retirement, whether that was saving for college, whether that was planning for retirement, whether that was estate planning through life insurance. I realized that I really, really enjoyed that aspect of the business, which kind of led me into where I am right now, which is starting my own company. I liked it so much that I wanted to focus all of my time and resources on helping people achieve their goals. And that really is what I do, is I try to help people through financial planning and through financial advising, help people reach whatever that goal is. Maybe that's a short-term goal or a long-term goal. It's what I'm passionate about. That's
awesome. And so you just recently started your own company, right?
I did. VanBuskirk Financial is officially off the ground. My wife took a big plunge, Meg, as most of you probably know her, to open her own coffee shop. And she kind of encouraged me and nudged me as, hey, the water's warm. Why don't you jump on in? So yeah, I'm thrilled to be in this new venture and under the name VanBuskirk Financial. Yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. So in honor of Meg, I'm using my Paper City mug tonight. So
you will appreciate the support.
We're sad that they're closed. So
she is too. There's nobody more sad than she is.
We're almost out. Yeah. That's true. That's true. All right. So I think we should jump right in here. I think everybody's probably about ready for us to kind of just do a whole dive deep in here. So I have a few questions I was going to ask you. And so kind of first of all of us are in a different spot financially. I've heard somebody say that we're all in a storm except, but everybody's in a different boat. And so all of us there, we're all experiencing some sort of storm right now with just everything that's going on. And, but also especially with our finances, because there's such certainty. But I do realize that we're all in different boats too, just where we are. Some of us are unemployed, some not, and what that might look like. And so I guess for me, like what I'm wondering is just what should our relationship with our finances be during this time, especially right now in a pandemic?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question, because I think that, as you alluded to, we all are we feel like we're maybe on an island, even though we're all together in this. We do very much feel isolated. I think that one of the really unique opportunities that we have in having that relationship with finances during this time, and I'm sure that it's the same for just about everybody, is that we've had to all step back and we have a lot of free time. At least most of us do now more than ever. We don't have the typical job hours. We do not have typical after work meetings, which has allowed for us to kind of take a step back and reprioritize. I think that for most of us, I know that Megan and I talk often about, this has really caused us to realize what is most important to us. And I think that all the things that typically occupy our time and space and energy, when we really think about the things that are most important to us, fit in a very small sized container, which is kind of fascinating when you think about it. And I think that goes the same as finances, with us having time to kind of reevaluate. A lot of us are in a different situation financially, so we have had to reprioritize things. Maybe that is cutting a cable bill. Maybe it is reducing, nobody's having much fun going out to eat and going to the movies. So I know that it's caused a reduction in some of those things. But I think that the relationship that we could be having with money right now is really taking this time to reevaluate where we currently are. Everybody has goals. Everybody has aspirations. And I think that how we are trying to get there and what we are trying to do in order to accomplish those goals, now is a fantastic time to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's, like you said, like just prioritizing what matters in our lives and what really we want to do with our life. And that really, having those priorities kind of helps direct where we want our money to go. And so I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too that we realize, I know that Megan and I have realized, and I don't know if we're the only ones in this boat, but I think that you realize in a time like this, even though you think that you're fiscally responsible, how much overspending you may do on things that really aren't very important, and how much you kind of give into that consumerism side of just the rest of society. It's kind of fascinating to be able to take a step back and realize, wow, I was spending that much money on this, and there's no return on investment or no value that I really have in those things.
Yeah, I think we're kind of getting a good look at ourselves during this process. But I love you kind of lead into my next question, was kind of about budgeting, because what we were making before might be different from what we're making now. And just budgeting in general, especially once we have our priorities, I think budgeting is a great next step for what that could look like. And so, how should I budget? How should I prioritize my spending during this season?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question, because everything has changed so much. A lot of people have been furloughed from their places of employment. They are facing challenges that they never thought that they would face. So the thought of also trying to fit that into a budget of some sorts seems quite backwards. You're supposed to have this budget when you're working a full-time job and when you're doing all of this and all of that. But I really think, truly, kind of to go back to what I said, I think that this has allowed for us to have enough time to really recognize and see things for what they are. The first thing as far as budgeting goes is just plain and simple, start a budget. If you do not have a budget, start one. That's easy step, right?
It's easier said than done, but yeah.
It is easier said than done, but there are all sorts of tools that are available to us that you can use. For instance, one thing that budgeting, and this is not an endorsement on the entire program, but Dave Ramsey's Groups has a fantastic budget that you can get on their online program. I think that most of what they offer just to start a budget or a spreadsheet is for free. So I think that that's a great thing to use. The other thing that Megan and I use quite typically is the app called Mint. Are you familiar with that app? Do you guys use it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I use it. I know it does a lot of our finances, but yeah, no, we use it too. We love it.
Yeah. I think that's the using tools like that are free or available to you. Another thing right now is that everybody's budget has changed so much that there are surpluses in some areas, but then there is, a little bit of a negative in other areas. For instance, your guys' eating out budget right now probably has a surplus. What's your grocery budget?
Right.
Having 3 kids at home, it's probably a lot less than what it normally is, right?
Right.
So I think that making sure that we are taking the time to establish some of these goals for what we want our budget to look like. With me being a financial advisor, one of the very first things that I sit down and talk with someone is to say, establish some form of a budget. Regardless of what that looks like. For some people, that may mean an incredibly rigid, they're tracking every penny. For others, maybe it's a little bit more relaxed. They kind of know what they have. As long as you have a budget, your financial future depends on knowing what you have to invest and what you have to save. And I think prioritizing something like making sure that you are spending correctly or budgeting correctly, especially in this time, when there is a lot of uncertainty. Megan and I have referred to it as our coronavirus budget. It's different from our normal budget. And we find ourselves, I think, in the same place as a lot of people. Things have changed a lot for us. The coffee shop is closed. We have a stream of income that is completely wiped out. It's no longer there. I know that for a lot of people too, that, and I was one of these people, especially as a younger person, you hear your parents say, like, you have to have 3 months saved up in reserves or in cash or in something. And you kind of chuckle about that when you're younger. And then all of a sudden this happens. And I think that the pain for those that did not prepare is so much more severe than the ones that had planned accordingly for a circumstance like this to be able to weather the storm quite a bit better.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. But something with budgeting, just kind of get your perspective on this. And so I can't remember, I heard it years ago, somebody that I was listening to talked about, because I would set a budget and it was like for, the whole year, and then I'd get started and then I would completely screw it all up. And then I just, toss it to the window because I messed it up. And they kind of challenged that thinking and said, no, you should actually do your budget each month. Each month, sit down, look at your expenses, look at what you're doing, look at the birthday parties you have that month, the different things. And it's so like your budget can be flexible month to month. You don't have to be so like, this is what I'm doing all year. What are your kind of thoughts on that? How do y'all do that?
Yeah, we do it month to month, just because things change. Both of our incomes are variable incomes. We don't have a set base salary. So for us, trying to plan something out monthly works much better for us, just because our incomes can change month to month. So I think that planning monthly is a great idea. I think that one thing when it goes to budgeting that a lot of parents can take advantage of during this time is, I know that growing up, we were always taught budgeting principles through our parents. You save this, you tithe this, you do this sort of a thing with your money. But there was never much, and I think that this is a generational thing, there was never much transparency with financial struggles or financial successes. And I think that now is a fantastic time for parents to teach their kids basic money principles. If you are not teaching them the principles about money, they are going to learn those principles from somebody else somewhere down the line. I think letting them see some of the struggle or some of the differences that this has caused allows for our kids to have real hands-on practical experience, to where when they're in their 20s and they get hit with the hot water tank that explodes, and now they have to come up with $700 or $800, which I remember when we were first married, coming up with $700 or $800 seemed like a monumental task. I think that prepares them so much better for the real world, and kids that have that perspective and that relationship with money, instead of being shielded from it by their parents, I think have such a better outlook on the opportunities with money, but also the respect that properly budgeting and having finances in order brings.
I love that. That's challenging to me because it's really hard to kind of do that. One thing I do try to do, I'm, the penny pincher. And so
Yeah.
I'm the one that's always looking at that. And so the kids, of course, they have no concept of what we've spent for what. But so instead of saying that we don't have money for that, because I don't want them to, like to feel like that mindset. I always, if it's towards whatever, I'll just say, well, we've already used our budget for going out to eat this month, or, well, we don't have that budgeted right now. And so we're not able to do that. Like try to using some of that language just to let them know it's not that we don't have the money. It's just that wasn't in the budget. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that, but it's hard. It really is.
Sure that is. I think that it goes back to our relationship with money, because I think that, as you kind of mentioned, there are some parents that maybe out there that don't have means to spend a lot of money, try to shield their kids from knowing that they maybe don't have a lot of money. But I think conversely, there are a lot of parents that I talk to that would maybe be considered quite wealthy, also try to shield their kids from being labeled as, a rich kid or a kid that has all the means in the world. And typically in the middle class, we just don't talk about finances at all. It's off the table. We don't really mention it. So I think that teaching your kids how to have that relationship with money and using phrases like that we have already spent that money, I think that that's a fantastic way to get kids adapted to the idea that it is not this infinite amount of cash that we have on hand. There is a finite amount that we have.
Yeah, I love that. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
So credit card debt. I know that, for some of us, we might be using those more than what we'd like to, and some of us might have balances bigger than what we really want to in the first place. So what's that look like really to even, that debt, to tackle it, to not tackle it? What's that look like right now, especially in this season?
Yeah, I think that that's something where I'm sure that as you mentioned that, there's the person out there that kind of chuckles like, haha, that's hilarious. I could never overcome the credit card debt, especially in this season of my life. But I do certainly think that there's a way to do that. I think the number one way is adhering to your budget, making sure that you are sticking to the budget that we just described in the prior step, making sure that you have those guidelines. It's so very easy if you don't have a budget to spend more money and overspend. Megan and I typically find that when we don't have a budget, you feel freer, but then you realize that you really did spend a whole lot of money on a whole lot of nothing. So I think that the first principle would be making sure that you adhere to your budget. And I think that, again, going back to not a plug for the entire program, but Dave Ramsey has a fantastic snowballing effect. In many other organizations, this isn't a proprietary idea that he's come up with, but he explains it in such a way where it really does make sense to anybody that's out there that has accumulated debt to try to get out of it. Megan and I, when we were very first married, we literally had no money. There wasn't much money, yet we found a way after listening to Dave Ramsey's, some of his program, and hearing somebody else, a family member, talk about the snowballing effect that he kind of uses as a reference. Start with your smallest bill, pay that off, and then move on to the larger ones. With making no money and having no extra cash, somehow, lo and behold, we were able to get out of the debt that we did have. So there is a way to do it. I think that the relationship with money as well is something that we try to keep really secret and private. There's no shame in talking to somebody else about, hey, I'm struggling with this. This is something that is a real frustration for me and for my family. What resources are out there for me to get help with? I think that those three things, adhering to a budget, don't reinvent the wheel. Look at what somebody else has made really, really successful and easier for you ultimately. But then maybe talk to that friend or ask that friend, hey, what have you guys done to maybe be successful? I've had some financial mentors in my life that have really helped me when I have needed some help on how to do things, what to do, questions that I would not have known the answers to if I did not ask a mentor, did not go to somebody and say, hey, what's your take on this? How should I approach this?
I think you really hit on something, that stigma of just, even asking for help. And it doesn't even just, even with our finances, as humans, I find that we have a hard time asking for help, period, whether it's helping with our kids or, I don't know, anything really.
Yeah.
We just have a hard time doing that. But I do think it's true. Even with our finances, we have such a hard time just kind of being like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I don't know why we even think that we should have it all together or no, because I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And when you think about how the society's approach to money, I mean, can you remember in school what you learned about money and its relationship and a monthly budget and how you need to plan for all these things, medical insurance, automobile insurance? I know for me, and this is not a diss on my mom because I was homeschooled, but there was a lot of that even being under the tutelage of a parent that really cared about our financial success that you don't understand until you get into the real world. So I think that feeling like you are less than, a lot of us think that when we mention how much credit card debt or how much we earn every year, it's almost like stepping on this financial scale where everybody can see what our weight is. And the thought of that to most people is absolutely terrifying. It really is terrifying. So I think the relationship that we have with money, for those people that are out there right now and are scared, and you don't know where to start, I will encourage you. I've probably seen just about everything that there is to see. You do not need to feel embarrassed. Quite conversely, I think that you need to feel empowered, that there is a way for you to get ahead of this. There is absolutely a light at the other end of this. You just need to make sure that you talk to somebody, whether that is a financial advisor, whether that's a financial planner. Sitting down and talking with somebody that can give you some guidance would make a monumental difference in your financial outlook.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's totally a stigma with it. And the only way that we're going to break that is if we go against it. And if we just kind of stand up and be like, well, of course I'm human. Of course I made mistakes. Of course I was in college and I, got all this debt and I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
Just as kind of like, that's going to happen. We're all in the same boat in some way or another, and so sometimes we just have to say, I need help. So I love that. I think that's so good. Okay, so let's move on. So how about this pandemic and the situation that we're in right now, how will that affect, maybe for somebody who's retirement or their investments? What's that look like? What do you think for the situation that we're currently in, the effect that it'll have on those things?
Yeah, make no doubt about it, is absolutely impacted everybody's retirement portfolio, their investments, whatever that looks like. This has certainly impacted it. I think the one thing to keep in mind is that the U.S. government and the U.S. economy has always done such a great job at bouncing back from this. So be cautious about who you're listening to. Maybe don't subscribe to all the doomsday reports that it's the end of the world and your 401k is wrecked. Statistically speaking, though, to be open and candid and honest, most people in their 401ks and investment accounts have lost an average of 20 to 30% in their retirement accounts and investments, which is a really big chunk of money. Especially when you're talking about somebody that is maybe a little bit closer to retirement. So it certainly has impacted that, maybe more so for the people that are in the twilight of their career than the people that are younger. I think that now, while you have the time, it's a great chance for you to talk to an advisor, even if it's that's not a relationship that you have established right now. We all do have a little bit extra time on our hands. So maybe making sure that you can find out what that means to you in your specific situation. Okay, I've been impacted by this. I've seen my 401k balance go up and down. Or maybe you're a person that says, I really don't know how this has impacted me. Getting a little bit more of a complete picture of what it has done and what it will do puts most people to rest. Acting like it's not there and nothing's happening and nothing bad has happened and it's the elephant in the room is usually never a good idea. I think that I would highly suggest taking this opportunity to look at your investments, meet with a consultant or meet with an advisor so that they can go over some of that, so that they can speak directly to your situation and how that has impacted you.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice, just not to act like we got our head in the clouds. And, I just said this the other day that, it's like a little kid who, if I close my eyes and you can't see me, sometimes I think we might do that with this kind of stuff too. But I just ignore it and go away. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, especially with our money.
Very
All right,
true.
so I got 2 different scenarios here for you.
Okay.
So scenario 1 is I have cash in the bank. Should I use cash now to buy into the market? When's the right time to buy into a falling market, even if that is a good possibility?
Yeah. I think that one way to look at that as far as knowing when the right time to buy, and this is a very investor specific question, so I'll try not to get too much in the weeds with those of you that out there that really don't care. Nobody can predict when the best time to buy something is. If they tell you that, you should walk the other way and maybe look for another advisor or look for somebody else to take advice from. There are good times to purchase or to invest in the market. If somebody tells you that now is the perfect time or that they know exactly when the right time is in a falling market, if we all had crystal balls, we would all be so much wealthier and would be so much more prepared for the future than what we are now. And trying to predict something would be almost as ludicrous to say that you have a crystal ball in your back pocket and that you can tell when the upside is going to start.
Don't we all wish?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that it's an interesting question. I would say if you're looking at investing in a falling market, buy something that is at your price point and that you can understand and that you find value in. Don't buy it just because somebody on TV tells you to buy it. Buy something, one of Warren Buffett's lifelong principles is buy something that you understand and that is simple for you to understand. So I think that adhering to that principle, not just buying something because somebody that's yelling on TV and is telling you how great this next thing is going to be to go ahead and purchase it, make sure that you understand what it is that you are buying and how its relationship with the market should mean that it is going to increase in value and not decrease in value.
That's some great advice. I love that. That's really good. Okay, scenario number 2 is I don't have cash in the bank. Are there still ways for me to start making small investments with limited resources now?
Absolutely. I think that another thing that hinders a lot of people from investing is that they say, maybe when I make this much money, I'll start investing. Or when I have this much money left over in my monthly budget, that's when I'm going to start investing. They're always that way. It's like me going to the gym. It's like, Monday, I'll start going to the gym. Luckily, all the gyms are closed right now. So that's like an infinite excuse that I can use for the time being as to why I'm not going to the gym. But I think that a lot of times people think that what they have to offer in way of an investment is laughable, and that hinders them from getting in the habit and the process of making sure that they are investing, even if it's $10 a month, even if it's $5 a month. I think establishing that principle of knowing that you are investing towards something, you're investing towards your future. One of my principles that I always give to any client that I meet with, and this is aside from, I know that a lot of us subscribe to maybe some religious principles as far as tithing, and others have maybe an affinity for giving to the Humane Society. That's something that they like to make sure that they do religiously, habitually, every single month. I think that the other thing that people have to realize is you have to pay yourself every single month. You have to make yourself a priority. You have to make your financial success a priority. If not, very much like going to it just makes a world of difference when you can start off, even if it is a small amount. I think one resource that is available to a lot of people out there that they may not know is make sure that if your employer offers some sort of retirement plan, walk into your HR department, call your HR director and ask them, hey, what is the opportunity for me if you aren't invested in that plan to maybe start investing in that plan? A lot of companies offer employee matching incentives, which means that even if you are able to invest a bare minimum, whatever that means per paycheck, that company is going to match up to a certain percentage of that. So if you're not enrolling in one of those plans, you're essentially giving away money. It's money that the company has offered to give you. And if you don't take advantage of that, you're essentially saying that you would not like their handout.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Okay, I got one more question for you, and then we need some viewer questions. So you haven't asked us a question yet in the comments. We're going to get to those. I'm going to do one more, and we want to answer your questions too. So make sure you're writing them in the comments for us. That way we can get to those. So one more question for you is, I have lots of friends that are younger and, that millennial type age, although technically I'm a millennial. So, there's that. But how's that work? So, younger, I have no knowledge or plan of how to start preparing for financial success. Where do I start? I think it's hard, like we were talking about when we learn this stuff in school and in high school, and how like we just don't have a concept for it. And so it kind of goes one ear out the other because it just doesn't make sense. And I think sometimes even once we get college years, even like young adult, like it's still like retirement, investments, all of that. It sounds like what our dad and grandpas talk about. And it just, we don't even know, like it doesn't even make sense. So kind of help for all of those college young 20s. What can we do there?
Sure. Yeah. I think that one of the biggest proponents, and this is not just because I am a financial advisor, so please don't take this as a sales pitch, but I think that meeting with a financial advisor, I liken it to if I had a bad tooth, I could certainly pull that out on my own with a pair of pliers, but gosh, I would really much rather go to a dentist who knows exactly what they're doing.
Please don't do that.
So that I can avoid the pain. And I think that really what you're doing, if you're going to somebody, if you don't know what you're doing and turning it over to them, you're avoiding a lot of that future pain that may exist if you don't start off early. Millennials especially, or somebody that's young and in their 20s, I think that the only time that you really hear 401k and retirement and my portfolio allocations is from your wealthy estranged uncle that you see once every 5 years that lives in Texas. That's how foreign it was to me growing up. So I think that making sure that you have this development in this relationship with somebody that has just as much of an investment in your future. Most every advisor that I know that I talk to, advisors want you to succeed just as much as you want to. So sitting down and talking with them about a plan, regardless of your age, it still starts off at that square one of let's make sure that we have some principles in place, and then let's make sure that you're going ahead and paying yourself. It'll be great for you in the future.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So it looks like we got a list here. So let's start tackling. Okay. So what would the wisest goal for stimulus money be if you have a choice on how to use it? So stimulus checks for people are starting to get those. So what would be a wise goal decision for somebody on how they should use that? What do you think?
In my opinion, if you have a surplus and that's coming from a stimulus check, I know that we all think that there is absolutely a light at the end of the tunnel with this, but we don't know how long that light it's going to take for us to get there. So I think that for now, I wouldn't make any hasty decisions. There are certainly some opportunities that you could take advantage of. I would be a proponent, depending on what this person's whole financial portfolio looks like, I would be more tempted to save that money. Go ahead and put it in a savings account so that if it does get worse, if you have some sort of a guaranteed income because you're considered an essential person, and then maybe that job is cut, you have a little bit more of that savings background. If you are a person that already has savings, I would maybe look at some ways to invest the money to really make it work for you. In the Midwest, sometimes investments is almost considered a dirty word. I think that it's a great opportunity if you have an excess and that's coming from a stimulus check, is to maybe consider using that in some sort of an investment.
That's great. I love that. That's a good answer. I think that's really wise because, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spend it. Let's go buy something new. But just with the uncertainty of it, really saving it, that's a lot. I think that's wisdom. Okay. So what's the first step to start improving my credit score?
Oh, wow. The first step to improving a credit score. There are a lot of things that you could do. I think that there are a lot of things. There is a lot of people go to a financial advisor because they assume that we have a magic wand that we can carry around and wave and it just goes poof and everything is for the better. I think that a great way to improve your credit score is to first and foremost adhere to that budget, which sounds so painful to do. But I think that adhering to that budget and then working on something like a snowball effect, as we mentioned earlier, really whittling down that debt, paying off those loans, paying off the smallest loans first, and set, maybe you have a goal that you're working towards. All of us have a goal, whether that's an immediate goal or a long-term goal. Maybe you want to buy a car and get a really good interest rate. Maybe you're looking at a down payment on a house, or you want to get a really good home in a time when the market is down a little bit and interest rates are cheap. That could be something that you could shoot for as well. But I would just start off with those basic principles: have a budget, adhere to the budget, and really start to pay off some of those smaller debts.
That's good. You kind of mentioned a home. So what do you think about if somebody was planning to buy a home, or they're really kind of thinking about it this year? What do you think about that?
I think job security is a big thing. I think that you need to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that your job is going to be there. I think the last thing that anybody would want is to be in a new home and have no job. That would be a terrible feeling. Conversely, since the interest rates are so low right now, it is a great time to buy a home.
Okay.
One thing that I see quite often, though, and this is in any economy, any economic environment, people always tend to overspend. You see that house that you're like, oh, this is it. This is perfect. This is the one. And it just happens to be quite a stretch for you financially. Make sure that you set yourself up and adhere to that budget. Without doing that, you can set yourself up. I've talked to many people that have really wrecked their personal economy because they have overspent or lived maybe a little bit above what their means were.
Yeah, I think my dad always calls that house poor.
Yes,
spend all your
absolutely.
money. So then
Yes.
Can't buy anything else. Yeah, that's true. All right, let's see here. We got some more questions. What are some ways to start teaching my kids about money and credit now? You kind of talked about that earlier. Are you familiar with any certain programs or anything, or just maybe your own advice on how we might be able to teach our kids even like about credit cards and what that's about? Levi, he absolutely loves credit cards, although he has no clue what they are, but he always says that he wants a Target credit card, which he actually means he wants a Target gift card, but he doesn't quite understand the difference there. So
Levi loves money, I think, regardless of what form or shape it comes in. He has a fascination with it.
A little bit more of a fact, more than that. I don't know what the obsession.
It could be. But I think that most kids have that fascination with money. It's this thing that they really don't know how to get it at a certain age. They're not old enough to be able to achieve earning money yet. There are some programs out there. One that specifically comes to my mind, there is a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Which I would highly recommend anybody that has kids read the book. There's actually some framework and some paperwork that he includes in that book that he kind of gives this really broad financial picture of some of his life experience. And he really did have two father figures in his life, and one was undereducated and incredibly wealthy and very successful, and one was overly educated and was always trying to make ends meet. So I think that just including your kids on some of that topic of conversation, allowing for them to be familiar even with lingo, if you're trying to explain some things to them, how does interest work? I think that that's such a practical thing that we can teach kids at a young age of, if they want something, a valuable lesson to them is, hey, I will buy that for you, but I'm going to go ahead and charge you some interest on that. I have some friends of some parents that do that. And when you're getting money back from your kid that you bought a $10 toy for, and now you want $16 back, and the kid says, wait a minute, why is this working? I think that that's a real life principle that most kids learn the pain of that early and understand how that works, and that it is not just this money off of a tree sort of a theory.
I love that. That's a good idea. You've done a few things like that with Levi, trying to teach him.
I have. I don't know if many of them have stuck, but I have tried.
I do think that's an important lesson that you talked about, teaching kids how to earn money. And so what does that look like, to actually, so our kids have chores that they do, and I don't pay them money to do chores because they have shelter, they have food. And so that, you're contributing to our family. So if it's something that is contributing to, our quality of our family and just everyday life, then that's just your responsibility and what you're doing. But there are different things that if you would like to earn money, then there are different jobs or different opportunities that I can give to you. That's not a chore necessarily, that then you'd get money for. And I'll tell them, I'll give you $3 if you go clean all my baseboards or something like that, And so I think that's a good lesson to like try to help them earn it, and that they're just not always getting handouts.
Absolutely. I agree completely. When I was younger, my dad, when I was 16, my dad got me all set up with a mowing business, and kind of explained to me, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to achieve this. He of course bought the mower and the trailer, and the idea was that I had to pay that back to him. That was a small business loan. So I think getting kids exposed to that, regardless of, I think the younger the better, but maybe that does come later in life for a teenager. That was such a valuable experience for me to learn how to run my business, and a whole slew of other responsibilities that I had to learn through that process.
I love that. I love that. I think it's so important that we have to teach our kids that thing. But what was the book again that you said? Because I think people want to know that.
Sure. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay. Perfect. I think somebody typed it in the notes for us. So thank you for that. All right. So let's go on. We got a few more minutes that we'll do a few more questions here. Try to get to as many as we can.
Great.
What would you say to the people who are suggesting cashing out investments and putting everything into gold and cash?
No. Again, don't pull ripcord on this. It is very easy when you are listening to the people that are on the radio or on TV. Those people are coaching affirmation. They're affirming your fears of, oh my gosh, this really is, it's going to be an end of the world. Don't give into some of that affirmation that they are offering to you. I would highly recommend still possibly talking to a financial advisor. That's not to say that gold and silver is bad. Gold and silver has always been there and will always be there, which is why a lot of times people find comfort in that. Statistically speaking, you could invest in that, but I think that making sure that you have a plan and are sticking to your plan with your financial advisor would serve you much, much better in the future, as opposed to cashing it out and buying all silver and gold.
Yeah, it's good. All right. Lots of people are talking about tithing. We obviously believe there's a spiritual benefit, but can you talk about some of the financial and tax benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those that don't know, come tax time, when you are charged that bill or when you meet with your accountant and they're like, hey, you get to pay this much more this year, it's kind of a kick in the pants. I think that it's anything that is a charitable organization. And maybe there are some people out there that don't know this, but anything that is considered a nonprofit and has that tax designation from the IRS that is not for profit, that you can write off any sort of charitable donation. Obviously the church is one that has that status. There are some others, because it's near and dear to my heart, the Paper City Mentoring Project. Their donations that are made to them as well. So it is a fantastic way for you to be generous. You can do good for others by doing well for yourself, is what I would say when it comes to tithing and maybe being charitable with your money.
I like that. That's good. All right. What's the best way to play catch up if I know I'm behind in my retirement?
Yeah. There are actually some catch-up provisions established by the IRS that allows for you to, once you reach a certain age point, invest more money into your individual retirement accounts. So that's one very practical way, depending on what age you are. If you feel behind, there are some catch-up provisions that are available to everybody. I think that if you're behind and maybe you're not at the point where you are ready to retire, you're thinking about retirement, or retirement's maybe not in the next 10 years, I think that making sure that you have a budget to know how much you can catch up and to know what you can do, taking advantage of maybe the employer matching 3% that they're offering through a 401k or through a retirement plan, are great ways to start catching up. the compounding interest and the interest effect that has, even over the course of 10 years, is astronomical, regardless of what that is. So make sure that you have a plan in place. If you are trying to play catch up, talk to somebody. Maybe there's some strategies out there in your particular investment portfolio that you can take advantage of so that that catch up doesn't seem like such a monumental task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, let's see here. I think let's do one more. Is there a good rule of thumb on an interest rate decrease amount that makes a mortgage refinance worth it? You're refinancing a mortgage.
My sister-in-law, Beth Gerber-Gawalik, who is a fantastic realtor, would be much better equipped to answer that question than I am. I think that there are a lot of variables there that may be a little bit out of my wheelhouse as far as what I would suggest. I think that it's a great time to look at refinancing, not from my professional opinion, but just from a practical opinion. If you can save a lot of money on the back end of your loan from having a lower interest rate, I would maybe just talk to somebody that is a little more qualified. Maybe it is a friend that's a realtor and it has a little bit more experience, or maybe it's a mortgage officer or a loan officer that you can talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. We've got so many different people. I feel like we just, again, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes we just have to ask the people that we know, ask the professionals, because there's no way we're going to know all this stuff. No way until we ask people.
Impossible.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of my final questions for you. So you're obviously a financial advisor and we love you and your new business that you've started. So, but can you kind of explain to people what exactly does it look like as a financial advisor, and how do I know if I need one?
Sure. I think that first and foremost, to answer the back half of that question, is I would be a proponent of everybody needs a financial advisor. This is not something that is just for the wealthy or the super elite, which growing up, I thought that that's what it was. I thought that only wealthy people needed a financial advisor. So put that to bed, put that to rest. Everybody can use a financial advisor. It is like having a physical trainer for your finances. If I want to go to the gym and if I want to be in the best physical shape of my life, for me, I don't have the know-how to do that. I need to hire somebody to help me get to where my goals are. A financial advisor is exactly the same. They are somebody that you are hiring to work on your stability of your financial future, whatever that foundation is, and helping you reach that goal. A financial advisor is there to help you hone in on what that target is. Everybody's goals, your guys' goals, you and Chris's goals are different than mine and Meg's goals. Ours are different from our best friend's goals. Everybody has a different set of goals. So having an advisor that can help you really hone in on what that goal is and what you are aiming for. Not having a target is like being blindfolded and trying to hit a bullseye from 100 yards away. It's almost impossible to do that. So that financial advisor allows for you to have that component in place. There is a lot of the stigmas of financial advisors that are out there are kind of maybe going by the wayside a little bit. It's not so uptight anymore in the industry. You may find people like me where it is more likely for you to spot me. I cashed in my suits a while ago. It was much more likely to find me at the coffee shop having a meeting with somebody. Part of the reason why I run my business out of my home is because I want people to be able to see how I live, be able to experience my environment so that I don't seem like I'm this untouchable financial advisor that they don't really know. I'm almost like the Oz behind the curtain. I don't have this magic wand. It's a very practical, it's teamwork between both you and your advisor in order to make sure that you're reaching that goal.
Yeah, I think it's really personal too. And it kind of shows just that you care about your clients and it's a relationship. It's not just a transaction. And so I think you're awesome at that. So how much does a financial advisor or a financial planner, how much do they charge? What's that even look like? How do we know if we're, getting a good deal or much?
I think that that's a great question, because when starting off, if you do think that it is something that is unaffordable, don't most of the time, if we think that something's unaffordable, we kind of turn it off immediately. We think, okay, I'm not even going to go down that road because I don't think that I can afford it. To go to touch a little bit more about on what I do is I do financial planning as well as actual asset management. So if you have an investment and you want somebody else to make sure that they have their eyes on that and can help you make changes or do some things to that investment, that's a component of that. But also having a financial plan, again, that goal, that target that you are absolutely trying to reach. There are two different ways that advisors may charge. A lot of advisors charge a percentage based on what the asset management looks like. So if you have $10,000, and a financial advisor may charge a percentage to go ahead and manage those assets and watch those assets grow. If you hire an advisor for a financial plan, that may be a little bit different. Most of the time, rule of thumb is financial advisors will charge anywhere from asset management, anywhere from 1% to 2% of the overall portfolio. Typically, that's a charge. There are some, you need to be careful of some external fees and make sure that you talk about fees with your advisor to make sure that you're not being overcharged. Financial planning, though, a lot of times people think that financial planning is one of those things where it is really just for the wealthy and it's something that it can only be achieved by people that make mega bucks. Most of my clients fall into a category where we can come up with a financial plan for them, which allows for them to have quarterly meetings to make sure that we're on track for that. And it costs them about $500 a year. It's very affordable. It's very affordable. And why I think that most people avoid that is because cost, but at $500 a year, you're talking about a lot of things that you could forgo that maybe aren't adding value to your life in order to make sure that you are hitting that financial plan.
Yeah, that's really good information. All right. So how can my friends, we got 5 minutes here. How can my friends get a hold of you if they have more questions or if they want to connect to you more, even in regards to your business? How can we get a hold of you?
Yeah. The best way to get a hold of me, and first and foremost, I would love to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me. This is really something that I am passionate about. It's something that I truly enjoy, helping people overcome those obstacles to make sure that they are set up for success. That is my job. That's what I truly love doing. So even if it's a hypothetical call, even if you would be one of the people that are calling me to say, I don't know where to start, I need some help, please don't let that stop you from getting in touch with me. You can certainly find my Facebook page, which my lovely wife just launched. I have no knowledge of Facebook and do not care to have knowledge of Facebook. You can certainly set up a meeting on my Facebook page. You can also visit me at VanBuskirkFinancial.com and set up a meeting through that as well. If anybody is watching this and would like to immediately get a hold of me, it's burning a hole in their pocket, they're welcome to call me. My telephone number is 740-809-8002. I'm very casual. I'm very hopefully approachable. My wife says the bald head sometimes throws that off.
Your brother has the same.
He does. So despite the appearance issue that may present, I would love nothing more than to have a conversation with you about your financial well-being.
That's awesome. I hope people take advantage of that. And I think they've been able to see just from this conversation that they're really easy to talk to, and you've got lots of knowledge to be able to share with us. And so is there anything you think, just as we continue to go with all this uncertainty, if everything that's going on, just any initial words of wisdom or advice that you'd want to give to us as we wrap this up?
I would say patience. Be patient. The U.S. economy has proven, whether that was through the Great Depression, whether that was Black Monday in the 80s, whether that was the housing crisis of 2008, the economy always has proven that there is a bounce back period. And this is not a fundamental market lapse or crash that is occurring. This is something that is such a strange sort of circumstance. I'm confident that just don't pull ripcord so quickly. Talk to your advisor, talk to somebody that you can trust and value the opinion of, and find out what that means from you.
That's good. That's good. All right. So I'm going to ask all of these. We're doing 6 of these over every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. for y'all that are tuning in. Different topic every week. We're excited about it. But I'm going to ask every single person these 2 questions. All right. You ready for these? They're a little silly. Okay.
I'm ready.
So what's your favorite show or book that you've really been binge watching or reading during the quarantine?
Ooh, okay. Well, there have been a lot of them due to the quarantine. We have been rewatching 30 Rock, which we find is a really funny show. And book that I have been reading is actually Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Oh my goodness, I have that too. Yeah,
Okay.
I've started it, but
We
I
can talk
have
about
another. I'm a weird one. I like to finish one book before I
Yeah.
start another one. Are you like that?
Yeah,
And
very
so
much.
the day I got it, I read the first chapter, but I was
Yeah.
reading. I'm into the Louisa May Alcott biographies right now. I'm not sure
Okay.
why, but
Hey,
whatever.
entertainment.
So I have to finish it before I can start that one. But this is good. Okay, next question. Yes or no? Did Carol
Okay.
Baskin kill her husband?
100% yes, without a doubt.
Oh, it's too good. All right. Nathaniel, thank you so much. I
Thank
hope
you for having
everybody
me.
viewing, all my friends were able to get some good knowledge. I know they did. So thank you so much for doing this. I wish you
Thank you.
all the best.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe and healthy.
You too.
How do I close it?
Thank you, Kristyn. Thank you, Christopher.
Oh, hold on. We're still live.
Oh, are you there?